Hi, and welcome to the Switch Show, or welcome back. Today is a beautiful day. I never really know what to do after my intros. I'm like, hi, welcome to the Switch Show. And then it's like, do we just go straight to the point or dilly dally a little bit? I saw this thing where you're like, oh, you have to tease the topic, maybe say something captivating or create like a hook so that you're just reeled in immediately. But I don't know. Hi, welcome to the Switch Show is kind of like staple. It's more or less a tradition, and that's something I've done for 6 years. Hey, the Switch Show is six, which is absolutely bonkers to me. It's wild. 6 years. I've been doing this for 6 years. Something I started off as a teenager. I started off in 2019, 2020, I said 2019, 2020. I started off in 2020 when the pandemic had just peaked. And years after that, I'm still doing this. I think it's a big thing for me. It's something that I am deeply and eternally grateful to everybody who has listened. I have only I I have only begun to hit a lot of the milestones I wanted to hit in the first year, first 2, 3 years. Started hitting them in the fifth year, just after the fifth year. All right, yeah, just after the fifth year. So in the sixth year, basically, it's hitting a lot of those milestones, like crossing 1,000 listens, getting to 2,000, 2,500 listens. How this podcast has grown to be so widespread and international. It's a big feat, and it's something that is big for me. I see myself as a small town boy, but with a worldwide mind. So I don't like to confine myself to my space. So knowing that there are people somewhere in the world or out there in the world who have listened or come across this podcast is a big deal for me. So from the bottom of my heart to everybody listening, thank you. Thank you all for supporting, for joining. Whether you have been around from the very first month, from the very first day, or you started 2 days ago, or this is your introduction to the Switch Show, thank you for joining. And whatever it is that might have pulled you in, I would love to know at some point. Let me know what pulled you in, or made you stick around, what conversations you've heard that have pricked you, or you didn't agree with, conversations that you agree with but you have your reservations, and everything in between, right? I want to know. Let me know. I've told you, you can find us on Instagram. You can, yeah, find us on Instagram, and let me know how that works for you. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about worship, and in almost similar fashion to every other episode that has been released lately, it's going to be an expository one. I'm just going to go off on a tangent about worship and explain my thoughts, my ideas, and everything. So the primary reason why I started this conversation in my head before it became a podcast episode was hearing a lot of people come out and talk about music, especially music. So it is very, I don't want to say synonymous, but worship, yeah, worship is synonymous to music to many people. Anybody who hears worship, not anybody, let's say mostly Christians, when they hear worship, they think of music or songs. They think of worship music. And so over the past couple of years, pastors, Christian podcasters, and what have you, people generally in the Christendom have tried to define worship, or reshape our idea of what worship is, or trying to understand what worship is. And I think I have done an episode talking about worship before. I really cannot remember the title of that episode. If you will take the time. I don't think you can take the time to binge. We're almost at 830 episodes. This is the 128th. Yeah, I keep count. This is the 128th. We're going based off of every single episode that's there, including the trailer. This is going to be the 130th piece of content that the Switch Show has put out, which is that's crazy. But yeah, it would have been more if I was consistent in my in my beginning years. But you know, water under the bridge or something like that. So yeah, we're talking about worship. Worship. So one of the verses of scripture that comes to mind is Romans chapter 12, verse 1. And in the book of Romans, Paul is talking to the Roman church. Right? He says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Another translation puts it as, which is your reasonable sacrifice. And another translation puts it as, which is your reasonable worship. All right. And now Paul does something here that we don't quite see in contemporary preachings and ideas around worship. He calls a presentation of our bodies, right? And when we talk about body, we're not just talking about a spiritual, we're not just talking about in a physical sense. We're not talking about physical sense, not just your, physical attributes and everything. We're talking about so much more. So your entirety, the entirety of your being, your entire being, basically, right? He's saying presenting that before God is worship. And that contrasts, like I said, everything that we have come to hold near and dear as our idea of worship in our contemporary world today. The question, however, is if that is worship, are songs not worship? Can we not worship in songs, or can songs be worship? And the answer to that is, songs can be worship. Songs are an expression of worship. Now, there is this thing. I've been wanting to do an episode on it, but I haven't quite found maybe the right title or anything. Is this thing about how maybe I have done an episode or I've talked about it briefly or scantily before. What I'm trying to say is there are certain words that hold more weight to certain people than it does with others. All right. So for Christians, when we hear the words heaven, salvation, hell, worship, what else? I mean, you could think of a lot more words. I'm currently blanking. It's signals something. It lights something off in us. It's more or less a tripwire. So you just salvation, bing, and we just go off like that, right? So when somebody is using the word salvation, saying, say for example, let me give this example. The person is talking about how it is that they love music so much, and to express their love of music in words, they say music is my salvation. Of course, that is a very interesting choice of words. At the same time, it's poetic. It's showing that music has such a grasp on them, and music literally changed their lives. Salvation is about being saved, being rescued. In the Bible, salvation is mostly point to the Greek word sozo, which means to be pulled out, to be rescued, kind of like pulling out of water or something, right? Rescued from drowning. So when Christians hear that, they can be triggered. It might not quite be triggering, but permit me to use the word triggered in this sense. So they might be triggered. Same thing for something like heaven. They say, oh my goodness, this is just heaven. You're like, nah, ah, their skin is crawling, and they want to, but they understand you're trying to be poetic or expressive. Same thing with hell, and then worship, right? Worship, because we, or to a large extent as Christians, we should understand. Some of us do, some of us are trying to, and some of us don't. The true extent of worship. We should understand the true extent of worship. And so when someone says something like, "Oh, I worship," if I don't want to call any celebrity, but they worship a celebrity, maybe their favorite singer, they could go to the world's length to attend their concerts, to buy their merchandise, to stand, to support, to toot their fave's horn for the entire world to hear. Like, I literally worship them. I I've heard many instances, watching vlogs of all these folks and be like, oh my god, I could worship her, or I could worship him, and I laugh, but my skin crawls, because I understand worship to mean something more, and it does mean something more, right? It does mean something more. So as much as I smile sometimes at how we can be upset as Christians, our butthole is clenched when we hear certain words that are specific, or that are used very so often and mean so much in Christendom. Many times these people are just being expressive. At the same time, their choice of words is a bigger indication, or our choice of words, let me not just say there, because sometimes we might make that mistake. Their choice of words, our choice of words, is a bigger indication of something that is brewing on the inside. So when someone says that they could literally worship their their favorite actor, their favorite singer, their favorite creative, their favorite person, all right, it's something deeper. It's something deeper. It's something deeper that's brewing on the inside. And I'm not trying to spook you or scare you and be like, oh my goodness, if I say worship now, God is going to come down with it. He's not Zeus. He's not going to strike you with a thunderbolt. All right. He's not going to do that. But here's the crux of the matter. When you say you worship someone or something, it means that you're giving your all. That's the reason why I read Romans 12, verse 1. And I'll read it again just for posterity's sake. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God. So basically, he's begging them, how Nigerians will say, I did God beg you, right? I appeal to you, brothers, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. A living sacrifice. I'm going to come back to that. Holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Living sacrifice. Think about it like zombies. It's not quite like being a zombie, because a zombie is a mindless, brain-eating monster. They call them the undead, right? So in a way, I want to use that to explain something. So presenting ourselves, presenting our bodies, our being to God as a living sacrifice, we essentially become like the undead. We are not mindless. We're not mindless like them, and we're not going after people's brains. Although some people might beg to differ and say, "Oh, Christians are mindless, and everything is just God, 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 God." There's still free will, and if you don't believe in free will, you're not able to take actions on your own. And I'm not saying you should completely exclude God. I'm saying that, in the words of all many pastors before me, God gave us brains so that we could give him rest. There's the reason why God gave us brains. If he didn't want us to do things do things on our own, he would have made us exactly like the undead, mindless creatures, right? So we have minds, we have brains, we can make executive decisions on our own. The context is quite different for believers. We make choices with God, and sometimes because we surrender to the lordship of Christ, we let God choose for us. But there are certain things that God won't choose for us because human beings are quick to absolve themselves of responsibility. Example, choosing a spouse. God, look at the husband you gave me. God, look at the wife you gave me. Like, bro, God doesn't want that. So he's going to choose with you. Of course, you go out on dates, make sure that your interests align and you're obviously attracted to each other and all of that. Right. That's just a little segue. So we're back to my undead example. So we're kind of the undead, but different in the fact that we still have our thinking faculties, we still have mental acuity, and we can make executive decisions that don't involve consuming people's brains, right? So it is being alive and dead at the same time. So dead to your senses, dead to the sinful nature of man, and that sinful nature is one that makes us selfish. We are so self-absorbed that we do not consider anybody at all. It's not that we consider them a little bit, we don't consider them at all. We're only after our own gain. And I say that greed is a monster. Almost everybody says that greed is a monster, an insatiable monster, a monster with an insatiable hunger. And so Paul saying present yourselves as a living sacrifice is like you're going to be alive, representing God, doing God's work on the earth, executing his assignment, teaching Christ and making him known. At the same time, you're going to put to death all of the pleasures and lusts and the illicit desires that will otherwise consume you and render you incapable of being a model person, of being someone. I say someone, that's somebody and somebody that is a spitting image and someone who walks in the likeness of God. So Paul is saying put to death all those things, right? So a couple things. Love is present in worship. You can't worship what you don't love or who you don't love. Now some people might be like, oh, so does it mean I worship my wife? I'm not going quite as far to say that. Doesn't mean I worship my husband. I'm not going quite as far to say that. Some people say it in being expressive. Oh, I worship at my wife's feet and everything. So by the definition I gave, saying giving your all to someone, hey, slim pickings, but I'm strictly putting worship to God. All right, strictly putting worship to God here. So don't go getting ideas, please. You're not supposed to receive worship. All right, that's something that I would say is an exclusive reserve of God. So this is the all important caveat. If you receive worship, you have essentially made yourself a god. And I know that people are quick to quote so is it Psalms 82 where it says ye are gods. It was not talking to you, it wasn't talking to us. I think I've talked about this in an episode before. Again, I can't remember. I wish I could remember all of these episodes. It would be so much more helpful, but unfortunately I can't. So in another time and another life, not this life but another time, I'm going to expatiate on that. Ye are gods. It wasn't talking to us. All right, it was talking to the angels that left their first estates and came to lie with the daughters of men. So it was saying that you were once gods, you were once revered as gods, right? Because you're celestial beings, but you will die as men. So because you've left your first estates and you've come to corrupt and taint humanity with your spiritism and all of your mysticism and everything, which wasn't God's original plan. Now you'll be subject to mortality like men. Your immortality will be stripped away from you and you will die like men. That's what he was talking about. I wasn't talking about us saying ye are gods, because everybody just says ye are gods and forget that you will die like men. So why would God be talking to human beings and say you will die like human beings? That does not make any sense. Right? Anyway, these are my two kobo. Right? I don't want to say 2 cents. I want to be patriotic. I'm saying two kobos. Anyway, these are my 2 cents on worship. There is love present in worship. Another form of worship is in generosity, in giving. Alright, giving to God. This is a very touchy subject, the subject and the conversation of money. I haven't done any episode on money. I have steered clear from it because I haven't had as much or abundant information as I would have liked to prior to this. So that is something that I'm going to talk about or address in a future episode. I'm just going to talk about money. Talk about money, financial stewardship. It's something I'm still learning. So that episode, I'm just going to be giving you what the Bible says and telling you what, giving you people's advice and what my opinions are on money. But of course, those opinions will evolve and change over time as I learn more about money, as I learn to steward my finances properly and everything. But the crux of what I'm saying is that generosity is worship, giving to God, and you give because you love, right? And love isn't always convenient. It's something so powerful. My pastor said that if there's no structure to anything, or if there's no structure to specifically giving, then it will be reduced to a thing of convenience. Think about it this way: you love your wife or your girlfriend, somebody you're about to get married to, or let's not even say it's a romantic partner, your family. And it's not a thing of black tax. You want to give to your siblings, your mom, your dad, maybe some cousins here and there, and you set aside and you say you want to give to them. If you do not set aside a specific amount out of your income and a specific time, okay, once the salary comes in, once the paycheck comes in, once the check is cleared, I'm going to give to them a specific amount of money unfailingly, right? I'm going to give to them this. So if maybe you get laid off from your job or something affects your income, you're still going to give to them no matter how much, right? You just say, I must give. This is the structure I've put and I must follow and I must execute it. That'll keep on going. But if it's like, oh yeah, I'll give to them and then there is nothing, and I lean more to the second one, unfortunately. Like, yeah, I'll just give to them. There will always be needs will keep on arising. There'll be bills on bills on bills on bills on bills on bills, and before you know, all of the money is gone and you didn't give to them. You didn't give to you. Maybe you desire to give to your church or give to people in need, people who don't have as much as you do. You just want to give, but you don't find yourself giving them, and now you're in between a rock and a hard place, right? And maybe feeling some kind of guilt, like, oh, I wish I gave them. I have this amount, so much money, but I could not give. I just squandered it. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh well, God sees my heart, and then you just completely neglect it. That's a crazy thing to do. And unfortunately, like I said, I leaned towards the second. Now things are better, I will say, by the grace of God, and thank God. I've been doing better to save for emergencies. And whenever money comes, I like to, also treat myself and treat my siblings, and just put aside some money for other things. So if I want to give to someone, I want to give to church, I want to give to the needy, I can always do that, and not just chalk everything up to chance. So yeah, generosity is an expression of worship. Yeah. That's basically it. That these are my, like I said, my 2 cents. I found another 2 cents to add. Now it's 4 cents, and I hope you gleaned a thing or two. And we're going to be having a series. I call it the Hood series because everything, basically is hood. Well, except adolescence. We're going to be talking about the stages of life. So, childhood, adolescence, fatherhood, and motherhood. So, 4 episodes. I'm not a father yet, neither am I a mother, but I have gone through childhood. I will say that I am going through adolescence. I don't say I've gone through because I'm not quite out of the blue yet. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about that, my experiences in childhood, some things I hope to do with my kids, and my experiences with adolescents, or the Americans, or the guys who English is their first language will say uh, adolescent or something. I think that's how to pronounce it, adolescent. Anyway, and then I'm going to talk about, of course, fatherhood. What I hope to serve as examples for my children, maybe some of the things I'm learning, and for prospective fathers and future fathers out there. And then motherhood is just going to be some of the things that I've seen from my mom and from a lot of moms around me, and what my wife is going to do. I'm not married yet, but some of the things that my wife is obviously preparing for, so that we can be well-rounded parents. Of course, you can learn a lot of things, but practicals will test you beyond anything that the theories have ever posited or presented before you. So you just have to keep your head on the swivel and be ready, or as Will Smith will say, stay ready. All right, ladies and gents, thank you all for listening. This has been a fun one, and yeah, I hope you gleaned a thing or two. I love you all so much, and I'll see you on the next episode. Over and out. Flip the switch and do what? Illuminate. That's right. Deuces.